which was the basic calculator, go ahead and check that video out. All right. So let's go ahead and continue. We named it the primetime game, and this time we added a root dot icon bitmap function. And this is where we're going to utilize an image, which is why we downloaded the 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 pip module. Well, we did a pip install of the pillow so that we can find that image TK and image library utilization. And then you see where we have that file is in our directory here in the primetime folder. We have the icon image listed right here with a yellow star next to it. So this is where we are able to pull in a little icon, and you'll see it displayed in the left-hand corner of the actual image of the screen. Okay. And then we have our basic configure, which we did last time. And we're going to continue on defining variables. We have the operator, which is assigned to empty string. We have our string vars. This time we have 3 of them. Well, actually 4 of them, sorry. And we have a string var for the status text, a string var for the text input, and also we have 2 more that we added for our field 1 and field 2, or factor 1 and factor 2. So we have 2 factors that we want to select from our number buttons, and that's where the input is going to go in this string var field. Okay. All right. So line 25. We have lives now. So a life is equal to true by default. So whenever we define a variable and give it a value, we say that that's the default. And it may change throughout the program. So the next thing we want to look at is zap life. Zap life is just a way to keep track of how many lives that the user has. So if they have 2 lives left in the beginning, that means we're going to be decrementing or going down or reducing the amount of lives they have as the game goes along. Okay, now we have a default composites. Composites, I should have named primes, to be honest with you, because of the fact that 2, 3, 5, 7, 11 are prime numbers. Okay, so I don't even know why I named it composites. Let's go ahead and change that now. If you hit Control 2, everywhere there is a composites, I'm sorry, I should have highlighted the whole thing. Everywhere there is a composites, when you hit Control 2, F2, it should change. Let me see. Oh, see? So everywhere there's a composites, now we're going to be changing that value, and we're going to change, the variable name. We want to change it. You see how the cursor is blinking on each instance of composites? We want to change all instance of composites to be primes. All right, we don't want that to show as composites. All right, so that made it kind of easy using the Control F2 hotkey. So keep that in mind. Take notes if you need to. That hotkey is Control F2 to allow you ability to change all occurrences of a particular variable or any location, any text within the program. Okay? All right, so now we're going to go ahead and set the score equal to 0. So everybody starts out with a 0 score. We're going to increase by 100. to start off. If we increase by 100 to start off, can we maybe change that value as we go along? And you're going to see later on that, yes, when you get to the harder level, your score increases by a different amount. So this is awesome. Once you start getting into the game and you're really progressing and you're making more points, it'd be nice to know that you're getting more points for the harder, more challenging um, questions. All right. Okay. So score text is another string var. I guess we could have put it up there with the other string vars, right? That would have been good. Let's just do that just to keep them kind of together because it's not depending on anything. So we'll put status text and score text. And score text, notice last time we didn't initialize any of our string vars, but this time we are initializing the status text and the score text. So the very first thing that the user is going to see is select difficulty level down in the status area. So they're going to be requested to input or to click on one of those navigation buttons before they even begin. Now, if for some reason a user decides to click on a number before the game even starts, wrong, because it's going to check for entry and then you're going to automatically lose a life. So we don't want that. So here we go. Let's go ahead and continue on and define our, not calculator because that was from last one. We're going to do our prime time game environment. Okay. And so the next thing is to do an entry label or entry widget. And it pretty much has much of the same things that we had with the original calculator. So I'm not going to review too much of that. Just know if you need to refer back, go ahead and go back to that lesson or that project. Okay. All right. So then the next thing we do is we're going to react to the buttons being pressed. Now, very similar to the buttons being pressed for the other game, for the calculator app. And we're going to talk about the num click. This num click definition, and I'm going to kind of clean up here as we go along, reduce some space and things, anything extra. Global operator, global status text, global F1 input, F2 input. We're making all of these globals because we want to be able to access all of these inside of our function. And so the first thing we do is set the status to whatever they enter, right? And then if the composite number up at the top that's being displayed is equal to nothing. So if it's empty, then we're going to go ahead and put the number that was clicked on in the left field. You see that where it says F1 input.set operator? But if it's not empty, if there's something already there, then we're going to just assume, well, we can say that, okay, that means they already selected something and put it in there. So now we're going to put it in the other one. The F2 input.set is then called, and we put the number in there. So you see how we did that, able to switch back and forth between the two different input fields. Okay. So last time we didn't do if statements. So this is our first look at if statements. And remember I said we use this special colon to decide that we're going to automatically indent in VS Code. Now, if you're using another text editor like Notepad, then you're going to have to do that indent on your own or by hand. manually. If not, if you have that colon and you hit enter, it will automatically indent. So this if statement has a conditional way to control the flow of the program. So f1.get. So f1 we define here on line 37 as the entry widget. And then we're using the method get to see, okay, what's in that field. So we're getting whatever's in that field. And if it's nothing, then we're saying f1 input.set is the operator, or what we put in the operator. Now, the next thing we want to do is take a moment and pause after we do that and check the entry. We're going to check to see if the entry is valid. I mean, the two entries that they put in, is it good? Are those the factors indeed of F1 or that very top number? Let's go down to check entry so we can decide, see what it's going to do in order to figure that out. So within this function, we're calling another function. All right, so this is the first time that we're actually calling a function. So here on line 58, we're calling check entry. All right, so let's go on and look at check entry. We're checking to see if the selections are correct. All right. All right, so we do the same global values, life 1, life 2, and we're going to try, remember the exception handling, we're going to try and evaluate it. And if it's true, because what we did was we made it times the first one times the second one. So if the product of the two boxes or fields is equal to the top one, then we're going to say, well, we're going to broadcast that answer and show the comparison was done. And then if the answer was right, then we're going to say, excellent, click next. If not, then we're going to, and we're going to score up. So we're calling another function called score up. And that's within the check entry. And then we're going to update the score text. And we're going to say, oh, okay, well, let's increase the score or show the score in the show score area. Then we're going to say, play a chime. Okay, we're going to make a little sound, say, hey, congratulations, you did it. Ta-da. So ta-da sound is going to play upon a correct score. All right. Otherwise, which is why we have this else, otherwise is the else part. And we're going to say status text dot set is wrong. So we're going to say, hey, you're wrong. And then you're going to lose a life. So we're calling the life loss function on line 76. And then we'll play a chime if they're wrong. Smash. So it's like, oh, you done crashed it. You messed up. And then if that doesn't work, if that evaluation didn't come out right, then we're going to have an error message come up at the bottom of our screen. All right. And then that's the end of our check entry function. So the next thing we want to do is we want to set the level. So there are two little levels. There's an easy level and then there's a hard, right? What happened to the medium? We're going to have to see what can we do about that. And for some reason, I'm getting a little error message about the score. It wasn't showing wrong before. So let's see what happened. I changed the order, so score was 0. See, it was depending on score. So it does depend on score. So notice this score depends on this score declaration. So we have to make sure the declaration goes above any use of it. All right. Very good. I'm glad that that was caught before we tried to run it. Okay. Now, where were we? We were on losing a life. Oh no, setting the level. All right. So we have our primes. We have increased by. And we're using those global variables and to say if the level, that's what's being brought in, right? That's our argument being brought in. And if the level is easy, so if the easy button was clicked, then we're going to increase by 100. That's our easy level. We get increased by 100. And our primes are these numbers right here. Now, by default, it only goes up to 11. But when you go into the game itself and select easy, and maybe we can change that up and make this a medium. We'll see about that. So let me just put that bug in your ear now. Also, when you think about doing the exercises, that you'll know that's something that we can change. Okay. Then the status dot set level easy. We're letting them know, hey, let's play this easy game. Otherwise, we're going to increase by 500. That means it's on hard. It's on another level. And then we let them know, okay, well, you're on level hard. You're brave. And then the primes are all of these here. All right, so that's a lot of options to choose from. And it does get harder because you have higher prime numbers that you have to figure out what are the factors of. Okay. And I don't know if too many people are going to beat the hard level, and we might have to readjust that. Then we'll see. Because all it is getting a combination of these random numbers and their product. So if their product is going to be displayed at the top as a composite number, then we're going to decide if the user picks the right two numbers. Okay. So that is the set level. Now the life loss is basically we're going to use the zap life. That's the count of how many lives are left. And then if the zap life is greater than 1, then we're going to destroy the button 2. All right, so now they no longer have 2 lives, they only have 1. All right, but if, so this is a new one too, if, the ELIF means else if the zap life is greater than 0. All right, so it's going to look and see. If the first option resulted to true, then it's going to do this here and it's going to decrease the zap life by 1. But if it's in this area, it's also going to decrease the zap life by 1, but this time it knows that it's already destroyed button life 2. Okay, because if that's true, then it's going to go down 1 and it's going to equal to like 2 or 1. And it's no longer going to be resolving to true. So now it's going to go into here and check to see, oh, is it greater than 0? Oh, yeah, 1 is greater than 0. So really it's just 3 options. If it's 2, if it's 1, or if it's 0, greater than 0. Okay. So 2 is greater than 1 and 1 is greater than 0. So that's when it's going to go in here and it's going to basically destroy button life 1, decrease it. It's going to go down to 0 because at this point it's 1. It's going to go down to 0. And then this next time it's just game over. All right. So you really have 3 lives. You see 2 lives up there. Well, you really have 3 lives. Okay. In the final life, you don't see. Once you get the next one wrong, that's it. It's over with. All right, so we'll later on see what game over looks like. Let's play. Let's check this play button. All right, start or restart the game. So this global operator, global score, global primes, global life and life 2 are initiated here because that's what we're going to be using in here. And what we're doing, actually life 1 and life 2 are not even used inside of here. So I think it's safe to remove them. I was playing around with them before, but they are not needed. Okay. I'm just making sure. Okay, so new game. Let's go. Score is reset to 0. We show the score. Button life 1 is configured to show the text. And this is something new. What is this? Okay, so what's shown here is inside the text, there's a string and there's an escape sequence. That \u and then some series of numbers is actually a special character. Okay, it's kind of like one of those emoji characters or something like that. So this particular one is a heart, right? To show you have a life. So basically, I just have 2 hearts around the life. And when you go to code, you can look up the Unicode and use whatever character you want in the Unicode. So this is one way to show Unicode characters is by using that escape sequence with the \u. All right. And then we keep on going down. We show the grid location. It's going to be on row 6, column 1. And I'm not sure. I don't think we really need that grid location because it's already been defined. Okay. So if I'm not mistaken, this is good to go. And so is this grid location. All right. I was just testing some things out and forgot to remove it. Okay. So after then we configure the life, then we have this clear the display field. So everything, the operator, we cleared out. We make sure that the text input is set to nothing. The F1 and F2 fields are nothing. And then the action next button is called. The action next is when, we'll see that in a second. And then we'll configure the button, change the state to displayed. Okay, so we don't want anyone to be able to keep on resetting the play. Like you don't get to start over once you start unless you're just starting a new game, right? So within the game, you don't play it again. Once your game is over, then you can play again. And so we're going to see how that that control flow goes. But that does allow us to keep the user from being able to keep resetting the board. All right. All right, so we change the state to disabled. The button no longer can be clicked once we do the next action. All right. Next, moving right along, game over. What happens in game over? Well, game over, we're going to just set the status text to quit. I wanted to do like a little blinking thing, but it didn't kind of work out because you can't see it go so fast. And then I tried to do with a pause, and then that didn't really, I was getting some errors on that. It kept on saying, well, after a while, I think one time it kind of froze up on me. So I removed that sleep.time. So yeah, really by the end of this loop, everything's going to be set to red because when blink is 100, the last thing that shows up is the score is going to be red. So that's pretty much all you're going to see. You're going to see it says the show score is going to be red and the status message is going to be red. And then the status text is going to show quit or play. So we really can reduce this down to just 3 things if we wanted to, right? So I'll leave that as an exercise for you. And then we can increase the player's score. So we have score up, which is called, and we have our global variables. We increase using the increase by, which is a global variable. And then we set the score in the show text area, show score area. And then if the score is greater than 5,000, we're going to automatically level up that player. Like, hey, you've been playing really well, and we're just going to increase your level, see how well you do on the hard. Okay. And otherwise, or I'm not going to say otherwise, else if the score is greater than 7,000, then you get increase. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that the increase by is equal to 500 here in this region, right? If the score is greater than 5, it's going to go to hard and the hard. But I think, the reason why I don't need this is because within the set level, yeah, that's why. Within the set level, I automatically do the increase by. So that's taken care of within this function. In the hard level, the increase by is 500. All right. And if the score is greater than 7,000, then it's going to automatically start increasing by 1,000. All right. Then the next button says my global operator status and primes is set. And then we're going to look at all that. We actually don't use the status text here. Or do we? Yes, we do. Never mind. We set that to cleared, and we clear everything, and we display a composite number. Okay, so here's where we use the random. We are going to first assign the length of the primes. Okay, so that's the length of the list of numbers that we have, minus 1. That's going to be our length. And then we were going to get a random number. And we're going to assign it to num1. And it's going to be primes of that random number. Well, that random index has to be between 0 and the end of the array or the end of the list, however many it is. Like, we might want to change it up and make primes longer depending on how we do the levels, right? So that may change. So that's why we use the len function on line 166 to get the length. So it doesn't matter what the length is, we're just going to get it, subtract 1 from it, and then we're going to go in here and we're going to pick a random number, a random integer, between 0 and that number that we found out to be the length. So the length is the longest that we can have it. Subtract 1, And we may not even have to subtract 1 because we want to be able to include the last index of the array. So we want to be able to include all numbers. And with this random int, I don't believe we include the very last number. So we don't include n. So we'll do a little testing and see. If we don't get any values where the last index shows up in any of our random, then we want to change it, take away this -1. All right. But that's just a safety measure so that we don't get out of bounds error. Like we don't want it to say, okay, you're out of range in your index, because this bracket is really saying I want the index of primes. I want this particular index of primes, primes being a list. And each list starts with an index of 0 to however many long it is. Okay, and we want to make whatever this resolves to, whatever number this comes out to be less than how many we have, how many indices we have. Okay. All right. Num2 is the same thing. It's also going to get a random number for that second one. Well, we need 2 random numbers because we're going to multiply them. On line 169, we multiply the 2 numbers, and that's going to be our new composite number. So we're going to generate a random composite number. Okay. And we're going to put it in our text input field. That's the very top widget. Okay, so let's speed through here because we really have already defined our numbers in our buttons before in our previous video. So I really haven't changed much of anything except for the actual text that's inside. Okay, I went from doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 to these prime numbers. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing, and it's calling the num click and putting the number in there. All right, and then I just changed the button names to go along with the actual number that's being displayed. And then afterwards, we have our navigation button. So I kind of moved all the navigation buttons down here so they can be together. Easy, hard, play, next, and quit. And they're associated with their functions. So when the easy is clicked, we set the level to easy. And when the hard is clicked, we set the level to hard. When the play is clicked, we're going to call the play. Now, remember last time I told you we don't necessarily have to use the lambda function. So here's one of those places where we don't use the lambda. We just call play. So we didn't have to use the lambda function. Okay. So the command equals play. And then in the next, we use action next. In the quit, we call root.quit. Root.quit is a TCL interpreter that's being quit. So we just basically, all the widgets are going to be destroyed. So it closes out the whole window. All right. And then the life button, those two are not even having a command, right? We don't want them to be actuated. So do they need to be buttons? Maybe not. So, but that's what they are for right now. Might have to change them. Might have to spruce up the whole design. It's going to be up to you to change this up and make it yours. All right. The status message is pretty much the same in the same area as last time. And then the score report is over to the right in column 3. And that's where we're using the score text variable. And then that's the end of the main loop. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next code review.